Living with lupus, you really begin to see the true foundation of your relationships. Because when your body changes and your energy changes, you get to see who can really, truly hold space for you. You also get to see who only love you when you are easy.
Jesus, let me know, but they show no fish. Didn't say you found it, but she's still gonna hold on. Didn't say you found it, but she doesn't want.
So today, guys, we're talking chronic illness and relationships. What I can say is that chronic illness has truly changed my relationship dynamic. I think that, of course, it brings about a lot of guilt of the changes too. I know for me, my energy is unpredictable. One day I might just have so much energy. The next day I'm depleted. And that sometimes requires canceling of plans, or really that my friends have to be, or my family members have to be really understanding and flexible. And so I oftentimes, have to rest. My life has changed so much that I have definitely included rest in my daily schedule. It is just like taking my meds. It is just a part of my routine. And so, if something interferes with that, it's it's rest first, and I have to prioritize that. If I don't feel good, I'm prioritizing trying my best to feel better. And so, basically it means that I become less available, and honestly, not just physically. I'm less available for a lot of emotional stuff too. I recognize what I have the capacity to deal with and what I don't have the capacity to deal with emotionally. I'm a therapist, right? And so that means that I don't have a lot of energy to give elsewhere, right? I'm a therapist and a mom. And both of those things require a lot of energy for me. And so that means that I think my friends have a good understanding of it has to be a good day. You know what I mean? It has to be a good day where I feel good and I have it to give. Otherwise, that means that I have had to, somehow get filled back up, right? And so my friends understand that, my family understand that, but for those who don't, it's just one of those things. And that is one of the things that chronic illness changes. What I say is that, you know, I hear all the time that people dealing with chronic illness, their loved ones don't get it. They don't realize just how tired you feel. You know what I mean? The chronic fatigue that can come upon you just like that. And I was looking at a uh podcast by Jackie Hill Perry and her husband Preston Perry. They had the rapper, the gospel artist Trip Lee on there, and he battles, I want to say it's called chronic fatigue syndrome or chronic fatigue disease. It's a chronic illness. And he was saying how basically he could sleep for like 18 hours a day, and it did interfere and impact his relationships with his children, and it impacted his relationships with his wife and things like that. And I can only imagine like how hard and how difficult that is to not really be able to understand, even for yourself, why your energy levels are so low. And so, if I were to say that, to a person who has family members dealing with chronic illnesses, try to be as understanding as you possibly can when you know that your family member is dealing with, because you just don't know what they're really truly going through until you go through it, right? Right. My second point is just feeling misunderstood. The thing is that oftentimes with chronic illness, you do not feel, you do not look, I'm sorry, sick, right? You don't look unwell. You don't look tired. Sometimes you do, right? You don't look like you are suffering from something chronic. And a lot of times, especially with lupus, things are happening on the inside. There is um, different types of lupus that deal with skin and hair and things like that. So you might be able to tell that someone's not well on the outside. But very often, a lot of these chronic illnesses, like people, it won't show. It simply will not show. You won't see. And so that's why I think too, like kindness has to just be a part of our lives. You know what I mean? Because you just don't know the battles that people are facing on a regular basis. And just because someone doesn't look sick does not mean that they don't feel well. You know, it's to the point where sometimes I would even trick myself, like, oh, I was able to get up today and all the things. And then, I mean, literally an hour later, don't feel well. Okay. And it could have been, oh, I was outside too long. It could have been, oh, I went to the hot tub and I stayed inside the hot tub too long. Heat has been one of those things. I think I told your last episode that has just truly been a trigger. And so, I could literally wake up and be great. And then all of a sudden, boom, I feel like crap, nauseous and all the things. And so just because we don't look sick, sometimes that doesn't matter. Okay? Don't matter. We are still battling something internally. Not only that, I think a lot of times we minimize our symptoms to not be a burden to others. I just remember in my past relationship, I would say that I was okay, but super exhausted. And I just thought, I thought that, it's just normal, a normal thing that people experience, my mom, etc. But no, like to be that exhausted, to have certain, at that time I was having like pain in my feet, just a lot of things happening that I was minimizing just so that I could please this person, and people with chronic illness, I love y'all. We got to stop doing that. And I have a friend actually, and we talk about this often. I admire her because, she is adamant about sharing, like, no, this is what I'm dealing with. But also, too, even her, like, feels like a burden. Sometimes we just feel like we are too much. And I think that if we had more people who could understand, that we don't want to need help. We don't want to ask for help. That takes vulnerability. And although vulnerability is something that we all need to learn and express, I think we all can say that we really want to be able to take care of ourselves, and to ask for help when you really have to is really hard. And so to be a burden is really, really tough. But I say this with love to all my chronic, illness people, is that we have to stop minimizing and just being upfront. Like, if someone asks you how you're doing, someone close, right? I'm okay and I'm grateful. But I have struggled, my body I'm confused about, and I just want to share that with you, right? It doesn't mean that you are negative. It's you being honest with your safe people. So another thing is loneliness, emotional loneliness. And I actually don't feel this a lot anymore. And I'm grateful for that. But it can be a lonely, lonely, lonely season when you're battling certain things that even you are struggling to understand. And when you're feeling like, people don't understand. I know that one thing that used to really get on my nerve is like, to tell someone. I used to struggle a lot with stomach issues, and now, thank God my stomach is a lot better and I'm healing. My stomach lining is healing. But anytime I would be like, my stomach is doing this, or I'm battling this, or whatever, people would make it seem like what I was battling was normal. And I'm just like, no, it's not the same kind of thing. Like yours happen every once. This is all day, every day. Something ain't right. You know what I mean? And it used to just get to me. But one thing that I say is that the people around you are also adjusting. And I had to get to that idea is like they don't want you feeling alone, right? And so they, sometimes they're like, yeah, me too, I deal with that too. You know what I mean? And it's not to say that um they truly understand, but they just don't want you to sit in that alone. And some people don't know how to deal with that. You know what I mean? That feeling of like not being able to help, in those moments. So, it's just, it's one of those things where, you know, on both sides, understanding is needed on both sides. So it's like, hey, you're dealing with chronic illness and I want to understand. And then also, you're dealing with someone who has chronic illness and I want to understand, you know, two big things. Okay. The next thing is that relationships reveal emotional maturity. So this is the thing. What I've learned is that, your relationships can either you can either see in people compassion and empathy. You can see in people distance and just a level of avoidance. You can see that people leave you. You can see frustration and impatient people come out. Oh my goodness. During that time, I saw a little bit of everything. One thing I can say is like with my son, I mean, he's just grown so much in his compassion and empathy. It's just been so beautiful to see a teenager kind of do that. But with other people who I was in relationship with, definitely impatient, definitely felt like I was an inconvenience, definitely felt like the person was frustrated and that it was almost like they thought that I had control over this illness. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, stop being sick already. Okay, how long are you going to be unwell? Right. And I literally had someone in my life at the time who asked one of my friends, how long is she going to be this way? No lie, okay? You can really see people for who they really are when you are unwell and you don't feel good, right? And when I tell you it like, even though it feels like that time just kind of went so fast, it almost in the moment was very slow motion for me, right? It was like the way that people were able to show up for me really, almost, it was like a magnifying glass on who these people really were. Like it was like I'm looking at people being impatient. I'm looking at the burden, right? That I just looking at people frustrated, just looking at people impatient, just looking at the inconsideration for what I was experiencing. Like it was all in slow motion. It was like something that I could not miss, and that God was intentional with putting it right in my face to be like, baby girl, do you see this? Baby girl, I need you to see this because it's so important. It's so important that we see people and situations for who they are, especially when we're in vulnerable states. Because we can feel very desperate in those moments and just choose people and let people be a part of our lives because we don't have anyone else. But it's so important that we really see it for what it is so that we can later get rid of it, right? And so, you know, definitely the hard seasons definitely reveal relationship foundations. And again, you guys know, like I got divorced, well, I was separated during that time, but I got divorced, and it revealed the And there was issues before him, but it revealed that, it could not withstand that. You know what I mean? Sometimes, basically, lupus makes you see who can sit with you in your suffering. And that's so important. When you are dealing with chronic illness, you want ride or dies, period. You know what I mean? That's the only kind of people that I can have in my life. And I'll tell you that, I'm so grateful because my mom and I, we weren't in a good place when I got sick, actually, to be honest. But when she heard that I was sick and all of the things, I mean, she came to live here with me and take care of my son and do all the things that I needed done during that time to help me get well. And we didn't have to have a good relationship at the time, but that's how we were able to build, and it became a beautiful thing. So, that is a season where you see like who's really here for the right reason and who fake, right? The next thing is oh my goodness. So this one, let's talk about dating and lupus. It is scary because already, like, dating is a little ghetto anyway. At least that's what they are saying, right? It's like, at least people are saying dating is a little ghetto out there. It's a little rough. But what I can say is that my fear is, you know, just that someone wouldn't be able to show up in the way that I need, right? It's not so much as, am I too much? Because I'm going to be straight up and honest and to the point and all the things, right? But it's like, are you considerate? Really? Are you compassionate? Really? Are you a giver? Really? Are you generous? Really? Right? Do you know what empathy is? And do you operate from that? Right? Do you know the fruit of the spirit? And is that a part of your life? Right? And so I just want emotionally mature, stable, um, the ability to relax my nervous system, all the things. Like, because now I live a life of peace. Like, I don't think I've had this much peace in my life. You know what I mean? And so to think that someone comes into my life and disturbs that, like, mm-mm, can't do it. Can't do it. Okay. So this is a season where, you know, emotional safety is a priority for me, right? Because I know that if I don't have that, it is a trigger and it increases inflammation and stress and all the things. And I just can't. Okay. I can't do it. And we kind of talked about this too, but my next point is like guilt, right? No one wants to ask for help, let alone someone who is struggling with chronic illness. We feel terrible having to ask for help day in and day out. And then don't be like a person battling chronic illness who is also disabled. Like, oh my gosh, you have to think that, put yourself in these individual shoes. It is tough. Okay. We don't want to ask for help. And then not only that, I think I talked about this in earlier episodes. It's really hard to receive help. My dad, he comes over and helps me with a lot of things. And, when I call him, I'm like, well, I try to do this myself. He's just like, girl, why? I got you. And it's honestly, a little troubling because it's like, well, what if you don't have me one day? Then I got to figure it out. You know what I mean? Um, but it's also refreshing to be able to have that support. But it's tough. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to feel like a burden. And you also want your independence. And there is definitely, you're trying to find your balance. It's like, okay, yes, it's okay to ask for help because it's not weakness, it is strength. It is also, okay, is this a time where I'm actually pushing too hard, or is this actually a time where I do feel good enough and well enough to, do this on my own? And so we're just trying to find that, that balance of what does this look like, um boundaries, you know how to go there in relationships. It's always necessary in relationships. I even have boundaries with my son. Everybody can get it. Everybody can get it. Okay. And so the reason why boundaries are important, number one, is because you need to protect your energy. Right now I'm battling a family kind of dynamic, and today I recognize that it's a lot. You know what I mean? It's a lot. And I said, you know what? I'm going to have to break this in pieces. This is not a one day type of thing. We're going to have to break this down. Like, I'm going to have to do it today, a little bit today. Then I'm going to have to do a little bit maybe next week. Not tomorrow, next week. We have to be cognizant about the energy that we're continuing to pour out, right? And that's why boundaries are important. Also, avoiding stress, because stress equals what? Inflammation. Okay. And, to be honest, I think I told you guys last episode, anxiety has always been a part of my life from the very beginning of when I can remember. Anxiety has just been around, and so I'm already managing that. And so the everyday stresses on top of whatever else I have to be cognizant of how much I'm allowing to stress me. And that is where Jesus comes in. Okay. And I literally have to write down verses of, how not to worry, that God is in control. And I'm so grateful, because I don't know what I would do. And you know what I'm saying? There's so many things about lupus that you can't control. Like, even just sitting here, when I think about it, if I really were to sit and ponder and ruminate, I don't know what is exactly happening in my body right now. I have no idea. Lupus is something else. That girl is unpredictable. You know what I mean? One day she want this, another day she want that. Like, girlfriend be driven. Okay. So if I were to really go down that rabbit hole, I could be in a mess. But you know what keeps me sane and stable is that God is in control, right? God is in control. He got me. Okay. He knows what's happening in this body. And I have asked him time and time and time again for healing. He got me. Okay. The next thing is emotionally draining people. I think I did a little video on just what they have a lot of names. Some people call them toxic energy suckers. Okay. And I am very careful around people who like to suck my energy dry. I do very well with creating boundaries. And that means that, I don't answer phone calls if I don't want to. I don't text right back if I don't want to. I don't text back if I don't want to. I can utilize email. I end phone calls if they're too stressful. I have learned the beauty of creating beautiful boundaries for people who are intentional about sucking my energy. Because that says something about a person, right? Like, that I battle chronic illness, but yet you calling me just sucking me dry. You don't care about me. You can't. You know what I mean? Especially if I have already told you that that's what you do, right? You don't care about me. Mm-mm. And so I have to care about me, right? You have to care about you enough to put some boundaries in place, and not just put them in place, maintain them. Because if people see that you're not maintaining your boundaries, guess what they're going to do? Walk all over them. Walk all over them. So if you have made it a boundary to not answer your phone, or stand on businesses, okay? Stand on business. All right. So then the next thing is saying no more often. Um, I know this is really hard for people, and a lot of people don't believe that saying no is a complete sentence. Um, but it is, okay? It is. However, if you are new to this whole boundary setting thing, I can understand that you might need a couple more words. Okay? You might say, "Hey, unfortunately not. I can't do that today." Um, "Hey, I don't feel well. I'm going to have to say no. Hey, can we do a rain check?" Right? However, the goal is to just get to a point where you can be like, "No, I just don't want to." Right? I just don't want to. I am actually, and that's not mean. That's not mean. People just are so used to being coddled with our boundaries and used to, no, I don't want to. you know and during this whole lupus thing, when I was unwell, like my friend told me, she said, "Allison, you were the boundary queen in the hospital." And I really, it's kind of like, was I really? And she's like, "Yeah, if you don't want a medicine, if you don't, you said no." And will, okay, and will, we have to protect our energy, and saying no is essential. It's essential. It does not mean you are protecting yourself. You are honoring yourself, because every time you say yes when you really wanted to say no, who are you betraying? You. Okay? Only you. Only you suffer when you say yes and you should have said no. Right? Because now you go on in this place and got an attitude, or you don't feel good, or who's trying to do that? Right? I don't want to do that. And so the more that I have learned to say no, people in my life are really trying to, I feel like they understand. I just told my mom she had something, and I had did something earlier that day, and I was like, "Hey, unfortunately, I'm not going to make it." You know what I mean? I'm a one thing a day type of girl these days. She had to understand. So listen, lupus has taught me that peace is not optional. If you are someone that brings chaos to my life, you are not welcome, right? That's just facts. And literally, you guys, that goes for everything. Here I am, I'm a clinician, and I just truly believe that God brings me the best patients for me. I really truly believe that. I don't have one drama filled client. I just love my patients. I love all of my girls. I love them. And I just feel like, you know what I mean? They just match. We just go together. The jobs that I have and that I contract with, and the people that I get to work with on a regular basis, bomb 10 out of 10. Like, nobody is causing additional stress. We work well together. Nobody's trying to stress nobody out. Life is not supposed to feel like that, right? And then they also are understanding of what season I'm in. And that's the blessing. Yes, 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 yes. So the next thing is faith and relationships. Ooh. So, this is the thing. This is one of my favorites, because during this process, God has given me so much discernment about who's supposed to be in my life, who's not. I'll be honest. I went on a date. Okay. And before I went on a date, I asked the Lord to just make everything plain and very clear. I didn't go on a date because I was like, ooh, I want to find me someone to marry. I wanted to go on the date because I'm like, I just need to feel it. What does that even feel like? You know what I mean? I need to kind of just, take the rust off a little bit. Just to talk to somebody other than the regular people. And when I tell you the way that God works, that discernment came right on through. You know what I mean? Throughout this whole date, I just was like so aware. Like, this is what I want. This is what I don't want. He didn't do this. I'm good. Like, it was just a beautiful thing of like just knowing your value, your worth. It's different than 30-year-old, 20-year-old Allison out there, dating, and it's such a beautiful thing. And so that's important for all of my relationships, right? My friendships too, the groups at church, everything. God is giving me discernment about it all. And He carries me emotionally. That's why I said loneliness is not really a factor for me these days, because I have that peace that God talks about in the Bible that surpasses my understanding. You know what I mean? I think in February, I had a lot of like car stuff going on, and I was just at peace. Like, I'm like, he's going to work it out. He's going to, and did. Okay. That's just favor upon favor upon favor when I trust him. When I really choose to trust the Lord. Beauty. Okay. Beauty. And so, you know, I don't force anything anymore. I'm not forcing relation. I'm just not, because what's for me is for me, right? And God will remove what no longer fits, right? I had this season, and He had to remove. I lost a really good friend of mine. Um, I'm not married anymore. A lot of my habits have changed. I wouldn't say that I'm a goer anymore. I have learned to rest. He has had to change a lot of things, and he has helped me develop a different definition of what success and productivity and all of that looks like. And he gives me all of the discernment for that. And so I have been okay with the removal of people who no longer align with my life. And I hope that you do too. If you are someone battling chronic illness or illness of any sort, when you start noticing people kind of pulling out of your life and different relationships changing, the dynamics changing, and different things like that, allow God to do the things. Right? Allow God, because when we try to force things and keep people who don't belong, that's when chaos begins to happen. That's when illness begins to increase. But when you can like let God kind of just, you know what I'm saying, protect you and isolate you and do the things that he needs to do to make you well, let him be God. Let him do his thing. And I'm telling you, it's going to be the best decision ever. Ever, ever, ever. And so, I think the important piece is, well, then you might be asking, like, well, then, Allison, like, what does healthy relationships really, 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 look like for you? And it is safe. It is safe. I've been in the relationships, you guys, where I had to walk on eggshells, can't talk about nothing. The person talking to you crazy, cussing at you. I've been there. That is not healthy love. I would even go on and say that's not love. For me, it is when I feel safe, when there's understanding there, when there's patience there, when people are empathetic, compassionate, considerate, right? When they are showing the love of God, that is healthy love. That is where healing can continue to happen. If you put yourself in places where there's chaos and tension. You got to walk on eggshells and you can't share your feelings. You can't cry. Been there, done that. Don't want that. Ain't never going back. Your healing is definitely, it becomes stagnant. You're not allowed to grow in that space. Right? And so then that's where stress happens, your inflammation increasing, all the stuff. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. You know, one thing that I will say that probably has helped is, I want to say it's in Mark 5, the woman with the issue of blood. And she just, I just have a special thing with her. You know why? Because I also have been the woman with an issue of blood. When I was 14, I had to get a blood transfusion. And even this last year when I was unwell, I had to get 3 blood transfusions in a matter of probably a week. And just battling so much. And I just can't imagine, like, this lady, this woman was battling her illness for 12 years, spent all of her money. And then if you lived back in those days, it was taboo for you to be out here while you were on your cycle. And I mean, what is she going to do, right? Like, stay locked up for 12 years? Like, that is, so just imagine what she was battling at that time, right? But she was determined. She was so determined. Her mindset shifted. She was like, if only I can just touch the hem. And y'all, I know that we don't have Jesus here walking on earth, but if we can just touch with our faith, you know what I mean? I have faith that he can heal me. I have faith that he is the God that will walk with me through this, through all of it, right? And he said, daughter, go in peace, is what he said. Your faith has made you well. And I believe that. Like, when we can really surrender it all to him, we can then go in peace. Ah! I love that story, but I empathize with her. And if you are someone with chronic illness, right? I also empathize when Paul was asking the Lord to take away this thorn. And the Lord was like, my grace is sufficient for you, because sometimes it don't always get taken away. Sometimes he's like, hey, listen, I'm not going to let you die, right? You're going to have this, but this is going to be your story and it's going to be your testimony, right? Can a purpose be birthed from your pain? Y'all. Oh, God is so good. God is so good. One thing that I do know is that, you know, the right people matter. The right people matter. And that includes God. The right ones matter. And we have to first surrender. And then we have to be intentional about who we allow into our spaces. Right? It matters. So, you know, lupus changed a lot. It changed my body for sure. Okay. It changed my energy. It changed, you know, down to my hair. It definitely changed my relationships. But I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I am grateful to know that I deserve relationships that are safe and not stressful. And so do you. Okay. I love y'all so much. Let's pray. Thank you, God, for this amazing episode. This was so enlightening. And I'm just so grateful. And I pray that it touches the right person in Jesus' name. Amen. Y'all, until next time, I love y'all so much. Bye-bye.